Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and welcome to Week 11 on the waiver wire. Of course, to help us get all the right players on all the right rosters, DBro, Derek Brown, the King of Bros, and my patty cakes, Pat Fitzmaurice. We have a couple teams on bye this week, and it was another fun week of NFL football. Some odd quarterback play, too. And by odd, I mean bad. Lots of interceptions, lots of guys under 200 yards. It was ugly in those passing streets. It looked like all the best football seemed to happen on Thursday night, Pat.
It did. Saw an interesting stat today, Joe, about Jared Goff. So he threw 5 interceptions. The Lions still won. If you had to guess how many quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era have thrown 5 interceptions in a game and still won?
Oh,
I'm going to say 1.
Oh,
DBro?
I'm going to say Jared Goff is the only one.
There you go.
Believe it or not, Jared Goff was the 10th quarterback to do it in the Super Bowl era. I was shocked by that. And hat tip to the people at Good Morning Football. They were the ones who dropped that stat. But you would think that, well, 5 interceptions seriously derails your chances of winning the game. And 5 interceptions would also highly increase your chances of getting benched and not being around for the end of the game. So, yeah, I was shocked the number was that significant.
I think that is the more interesting point right there. Guys under 200 yards yesterday. Let's see. Russell Wilson, Daniel Jones, Drake May, Will Levis, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, Baker Mayfield, Mac Jones, Cooper Rush. I don't think I need to go any further, but yeah, it was not a great day for passing the football, but that's okay, everybody, because we press on, and hopefully week 11 we'll get a little bit more through the air and certainly some more on the ground before we get to the names to add and the waiver wire pickup of the week. We've got something to give away, and that is the Trophy Smack 36-inch gold column fantasy football trophy that is going to our good friend Hudson Hassan. So Hudson, congrats, you're the winner. Get in touch with us at customer support at mailbag@fantasypros.com. Send us your mailing address, your proof of subscription, maybe a love letter to Derek Brown, and of course, you'll get that shipped out to you right away. Again, Hudson Hassan, hit us up at mailbag@fantasypros.com. You have won the Trophy Smack 36-inch gold column fantasy football trophy, but with one giveaway leaving, another takes its stead. That is the beautiful thing here at Fantasy Pros. So Trophy Smack's unlimited 6-pound custom championship belt, my personal favorite, is back. Again, Trophy Smack, the #1 destination for fantasy football trophies. We have the fantasy football symbol of dominance, the 6-pound custom championship belt. This massive, fully customizable belt is the perfect way to show off your fantasy football title victory. So to get it, subscribe to the channel right here, Fantasy Pros, on the YouTube side. Drop your comments below and ring the bell till it goes ding for notifications so you know if you are the big winner of the Trophy Smack Unlimited 6-pound championship belt and you can claim your prize. All right, let's get to the waiver wire pickup of the week. A guy that we talked about last week who was not available on a bye, right? But we said, hey, good time to add some people here, see what you get. And guess what? The roster percentage did not move that much. He is just 54% rostered. He was back yesterday, 14 rushes, 66 yards, 2 catches for 29. He is Jaylen Warren of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, looking at Jaylen Warren's schedule ahead, boys, the reason why I was putting him at the top of the list for me personally is I look at some of these games ahead for the Steelers, and I know they're 3-0 with Russell Wilson. They're flying high, big win in Washington. You get Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Cleveland again, Philly, and Baltimore again. That's a lot of defenses you can throw the football against, Pat. And he's also past the bye now, which with weeks 12 and 14 looming in the near future, to me, that's a very valuable flex/RB2 to have, Pat.
And Najee Harris sustained some sort of ankle injury yesterday, so that's going to enhance Jaylen Warren's role, you would think, at least for this coming week. Certainly, Cordero Patterson will help take up some of the slack too, but the Ravens are a difficult matchup in the running game, not so much in the passing game for running backs. They do really give it up to pass-catching RBs, and maybe more so this coming week because they lost Kyle Hamilton to an ankle injury in that Thursday night game. Hamilton was a big part of their pass defense against running backs. So, this is certainly a pretty bright usage outlook, I would say, for Jaylen Warren this week. And I know he's not available in every league, but if he is available in your league, even if it's a shallow 10-team league, I think he's worth rostering and maybe, flexing even in a shallow league this week.
Yeah, I know on some of the other, football services like Yahoo and some other places that roster percentage is a little less, again, especially coming off that bye. And check your league too, because a lot of people had a lot of injuries this week where they had to make these hard decisions like, well, I need somebody to stream right now, and Jaylen Warren isn't one of those guys, so I need to drop him to pick up somebody else. That circumstance might be out there. He also might be some, a piece you could maybe acquire in a trade too, but Warren, a piece where I think you see that role continuing to grow a little bit. And, as they added Mike Williams, we'll talk a little bit more about him. Certainly the offense is starting to open up a little bit here. And that's also a good thing for Jaylen Warren's future here. But DBro, I want to get your take on Warren. I know a player that you're historically high on and what his role might be here down the stretch.
Yeah, he's a weekly flex play with RB2 upside. If he gets in the end zone, like last week, look at the stat line that he had, guys, and that was with Najee playing. That type of stat line, you add a touchdown on top of that, we're talking about he walks away as an RB2 for the week. So this is agnostic of he needs to be a major pickup for people if he's out there. So scour all your leagues, see where he's at, and if he's not, then try to get him included in a trade because the deadline's coming up. Because, yeah, he's an RB3 weekly. He's an RB2 if he ever scores a touchdown. And if Najee is out for any amount of time,
right,
he's an RB2 with RB1 upside.
Yeah, and that would be the huge thing there. And I just keep going back to the schedule too. I think there's a lot of good matchups where the game script might suggest either higher totals or working from behind a little bit, and some of that doesn't necessarily favor Najee either, health or no health there. So before we get to the other RBs we like in week 11, the one thing we like to do is bet touchdowns around here. Ooh, it was a good week for Joey P. Vacation and betting were a good combination for me. I feel refreshed. The pockets are full now. I didn't get to pay for all the butterbeer that I drank with all of my winnings, but we're getting closer. And the one thing that hasn't changed this NFL season is DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is the number one place to bet touchdowns. That's right. So whether you are looking to place your first bet ever, you're looking for something new and different, try something easy, like just betting a player to score a touchdown. So go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, make your pick. It's easy as that, and you can score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that promo code FANTASYPROS. That's FANTASYPROS, one word, for new customers. You get 150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. There was a guy who was fighting for the crown of waiver wire ad of the week for week 11. He fell a little short. We had a little debate about it before the show. Now we're going to have a little debate on the show. Audric Estime of the Denver Broncos, just 7% rostered. We've been hearing increased workload. Things were going to go a little bit better for him. And then this week against the Chiefs, a very tough run defense, Audric Estime really kind of was the guy. Now, Javonte Williams isn't gone. He is not out. There's nothing like that. So, DBro, the schedule also good for him, but for me, the big deciding factor between Estime and Warren, if they're both available in your league, is one's already passed his bye, and one in Jaylen Warren passed the bye, and you kind of know what his role is in the offense. It's still some ifs for me, although Estime, I think, is going to be bid on very aggressively, especially by teams that need RB help. So give me your take on Estime, what you saw yesterday, and what you think you're going to see from him in these next few weeks.
I mean, right now he's an RB3 like flex play. Looking at the role that he got last week, playing 46% of the snaps, he ran 8 routes. Javonte still ran 10, so this wasn't a full takeover of the backfield, but it was pretty damn close to it. He got all the short yardage work, finishing with 14 carries and 53 rushing yards. I mean, if he's going to be the early down hammer for Denver's offense, I really like him. And I know we were talking about this like before the show. And really kind of like pounding the table for him because the schedule upcoming, man, is fantastic. And he's out there in so many different leagues that, yeah, I mean, he could be a plug and play RB2 down the stretch. Like, tell me this, guys. Are y'all scared?
You were so excited there for a second.
I know. I had to stop myself. I had to stop myself.
Are you okay? Do we need to check on you? A little temperature check? All right.
Well,
okay. I don't want you to get too excited. We've got a lot of show left to do. That's all I'm saying.
Look at this schedule.
Okay.
Atlanta, Las Vegas, Cleveland, and Indy. Are you scared of any of those run defenses, guys? Do we think that Denver's their defense is going to put them in positive game scripts? Those are all good matchups.
Yeah, and the Denver Broncos have exceeded, I think, a lot of people's expectations, especially early on.
Mhm.
Things were a little rough there. Pat, I don't know if you're quite as six to midnight as Derek Brown is on Audric Estime, but are you of that same mind in terms of aggression? Because let's talk about it. Like, is this a player that you are, you're looking at the stretch run here, you're emptying the clip on this guy because, hey, if he does take
Mhm.
over that number one role in that backfield, this could be a huge difference maker between making or missing the playoffs.
I don't think that Audric Estime is a gift from the fantasy gods like Tyrone Tracy was, a guy who you need to have in your lineup every week. Tyrone Tracy is there for sure. I don't know if Audric Estime is going to quite reach that threshold of fantasy value, but it does look like he has taken over as the early down back. He outsnapped Javonte Williams 26-16 on Sunday and outcarried him 14-1. And you would think Javonte and possibly Jaleel McLaughlin won't disappear completely because the running backs as pass catchers have always been so essential to the Sean Payton offense, although maybe a little less so this year simply because
Mhm.
Bo Nix scrambles. And scrambling quarterbacks
Mhm.
check down to their running backs less. And obviously, Bo Nix is a lot more mobile than Drew Brees used to be. So I don't think Javonte and McLaughlin are going to disappear completely, but there is still a lot of value to having a thumper like Audric Estime. And boy, he is a
Mhm.
thumper. That final
Yes.
college season at Notre Dame, 1,300 rushing yards, 18 touchdown runs. This guy knows what to do when he gets inside the 5-yard line. So that's got a lot of appeal. And, Joe, some people are really up against it at running back with the bye weeks. I know in one
Right.
league where I didn't have Brian Robinson this week, I just start Blake Corum in a league this week. So if you're in a position like that, yes, I would have loved to have Audric Estime chiming in with what he gave me versus what I expect to get from Blake Corum on Monday night.
There's another guy, and I'm glad we have all these running backs to talk about because it's been kind of
Mhm.
rough. Like last week was not a great week to adding running backs, but this week seems much better. Trey Benson, I want to talk about him for a second. He is available in 75% of leagues right now over on Sleeper. Benson rushed the ball 10 times for 62, caught 2 passes for 25. James Conner wasn't really efficient, right? He had just 2.8 yards per carry on Sunday. So Benson was finding a little bit more success against the Jets defense, which we've heard a lot of tales about how good it is. So Benson seems like another guy too that you talk about the stuffing and cuffing season. We're getting very close now. We're in let's see, the 11th of November as of recording this. Benson seems like a guy that should be rostered in a higher percentage than he is if something should happen to James Conner, or if James Conner might be running out of gas at this juncture in the season too, because as a guy who has missed some time historically, full seasons and James Conner don't always go together. So I'm not sure exactly what the future holds for Trey Benson, but Pat, it seems like that roster percentage just on principle should be higher by now.
High end handcuff, Trey
Yeah.
Benson should be considered. And I don't think there's standalone value, although this was not entirely garbage time production in the Cardinals' decisive win over the Jets. There was some of that. But I think they do sort of want to spell James Conner a little bit since he's an older back with, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
Joe, that extensive injury history. So makes sense to not, work James Conner for 25 touches every week. And earlier in the season, there was some ambiguity about who actually was the backup because Imari DiMercato was either playing ahead of Benson or sort of splitting the backup duty with him. I think now Benson is the guy. Like they still give DiMercato a few snaps, but it's pretty much the Trey Benson show behind James Conner.
And they are the first place Cardinals. This is a team that right now has designs. When I did the on the playoffs, when I did the black book this year, we talked about the offensive ecosystems, and I was looking for the outlier. And the one outlier to me, that the team that didn't have all the right pieces necessarily, but could outperform was the Cardinals. And so far, they have. Benson was also DBro, the guy that I remember LaDainian Tomlinson talking on an interview, and he circled him as that was his favorite back. And I always listen, little things like that kind of, percolate in my head when I hear somebody of greatness, see somebody and give you a take on them because they know what it looks like. I don't know what the future holds for this player long term, but when greatness says that guy is one to watch, I want to listen and want to keep that in my back pocket. Is Benson a guy you want in the back pocket of your roster?
Oh, absolutely. He's a high-end handcuff, and like we've talked about in the show plenty of times, we've reached the point of the season where you need to be insulating rosters with high-end handcuffs. As far as like handcuffing your own running backs, if you have the bench space and stuff. And I mean, if anything happens to James Conner, Trey Benson's league winner. Looking at his schedule, Seattle Seahawks, the Vikings, Seahawks, Patriots, Panthers, and Rams. There isn't a team left on that schedule that you can't run the ball against. And Trey Benson would be getting workhorse opportunity.
Now, speaking of run the ball, the Chargers like to run the ball. Gus Edwards came back. And Gus Edwards got a lot more work than I think a lot of us might have thought. 10 carries for 55 yards. Looked fresh, which is good because Dobbins has looked not so fresh, I would say, in the last couple games. He is only 19% rostered. Would you put him in this whole, like, hey, you could do worse than Gus Edwards in these next couple of weeks if you have to flex him and he's going to get some work because of the style of this offense, DBro?
Yeah, I think he falls into, he's a little bit lower than these other guys, only because we know that Gus Edwards is not going to get passing down work. And this backfield would be split up. So I think there's a division of tiers for these guys. And I think Gus is like that second or third tier kind of guy. Only because we know those are limitations and full stop limitations to his game. So the upside is kind of capped. But to that point, Joe, over the next few weeks, the Bengals, Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, there are matchups in there where the Chargers want to run the ball. They can.
Mm-hmm. So Dobbins, just to be clear too, really good game against Cleveland. Then this past week against Tennessee, 15 for 50. So the yards per carry were down a little bit, 3.3. So the outlier seems like that Cleveland game, Pat, because before that you had 3.4 against New Orleans, you had 2.9 against Arizona, and 3.8. Like Dobbins really, he had some big explosive games to open the season in week 1 and week 2. Then's kind of been a little up and down. I know the Cleveland game was a good one most recently, but if you look at the month, workload, it's been a little spotty. Can Edwards eat into that? And is that also going to hurt J.K. Dobbins down the stretch run from a fantasy perspective?
I think that's mostly the effect here, Joe. It's more about what he does to J.K. Dobbins' value than about really creating a lot of fantasy value on his own. What I worry about is that Dobbins still outsnapped Gus Edwards 39-14 this past week, but Gus got 10 carries on 14 snaps. When he was in the game, they were handing him the ball. So maybe that continues. But as DBro mentioned, there is not a lot of pass catching upside here. And I maybe worry about that schedule a little more than DBro does. For a guy who doesn't catch passes out of the backfield, the Ravens aren't a good matchup. And we know the Chiefs aren't a good matchup for any running back, even Derrick Henry. So 2 of their next, 3 matchups are pretty terrifying. So that would kind of throw a little cold water, that and the snap count. I guess that's the reason I'm not ready to drop a lot of money on Gus Edwards in waivers this week.
Yeah, are you ready, Pat? It's the Bengals, the Falcons, and the Buccaneers I'd be looking at as plus rushing matchups for Edwards. I'd be staying away with the other ones, to clarify.
You have to make some room on rosters if you're going to add anybody like Benson or Estime or Warren. Jordan Mason, 1 carry for 5 yards. Pat, you saw McCaffrey yesterday. I know he's the insurance policy, so maybe if you have McCaffrey, he's still a keep. But if you don't, do you drop him and chase some of these guys on the wire?
Oh, man. Look, I know some people are in shallow bench leagues, Joe, where they've got 4 bench spots. In that case, yes. But otherwise, I don't know, man. This is arguably the most valuable handcuff running back in the game. And he's handcuffed to a guy who's been flying around to Germany for weird medical procedures. So I kind of don't want to give up on that.
That is the trick. I know a lot of this is very circumstantial when it comes to Mason, but you see the injury a couple weeks ago, the disappointment there, and then the bye week, and now the 1 carry for 5 yards. People are going to be looking at that, and I think the reaction is going to be, okay, it's over, it's done. DBro, do you want to pump the brakes on that, or do you want to move on and just keep chasing the next that can help you? Because, again, week 12, week 14, you're going to need some live bodies, and if Jordan Mason is getting 1 carry, that's not a body you can use.
I think it depends on how you're viewing Mason versus these other guys. Would I drop Mason for Estime or Warren? Yes. Would I drop him for these other guys like Trey Benson? No, because I feel like it's the same conversation. And then it comes down to which offense do I want to dive into more? Do I want the high-end handcuff if either one of these guys go down? Do I want to be part of the 49ers offense or the Cardinals? I think we'd all say the 49ers.
All right, let's get to the wide receivers. Before we do, if you're looking to experience live action sports, or if you're looking to go to live music events, concerts, comedy shows, you name it, the best way to do it is to use the Game Time app, because Game Time makes ticket buying easy. And it's one of the most annoying things in the planet. And take it from me, somebody who goes to a ton of concerts every year. I've gone to 8 concerts this year, and I got another WWE event day after Christmas. I was at WrestleMania for 2 nights in Philly. I'm the guy at the live event. So when I'm telling you ticket buying is a pain in the rear end, it is. And the thing I love about Game Time the most is it's got all of these great features like the super deal. It's got great features like you viewing the seats before you actually buy the tickets. And they've got the lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, all that stuff there that can really, burn you when it comes to tickets. Game Time makes it easier. So if you want to experience live college football, live NFL, if you want to experience live NBA, you name it, they have got tickets available. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the Fantasy Pros code. Again, that's one word, Fantasy Pros, to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem that promo code, Fantasy Pros, FANTASYPROS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, let's get to the wide receivers. And I got to start with the trap of the week here. I mean, I just got to, because when a guy has 3 catches and 2 of them are for touchdowns from Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints, it feels like a trap. It feels like I am just standing over a rug and there really is nothing under there. And it's going to be a very Looney Tunes moment where my feet kind of move like this a little bit real quick, and then I just plummet to my demise. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, DBro, is he a trap or is he the only live body left in New Orleans? You make the call.
Can the answer be yes to both?
It can. I mean, that's fair.
Though.
That's what gave me slight pause, is saying,
yeah,
well, he's a trap because it's MVS, and we know the history of MVS.
He is.
And yet at the same time, who else is there? I don't expect Olave back anytime soon, if at all.
No, and that's the thing with MVS, is he a trap in the sense that should we expect these type of stat lines, which was, to be honest, guys, this was the most MVS type of box score ever. Only 3 targets. He goes for over $1 and gets 2 tutties. Yeah, so
crazy. Just crazy.
Expecting that type of output, obviously nobody should be doing that. But in the terms of, are a lot of people going to say immediately, like we're saying on this show, and say, oh, it's MVS? No. Then you're probably going to get him for cheaper than what a lot of people think. And he is one of the only warm bodies left in the room to catch passes. And we have seen this offense, function at a decent level. I know weeks 1 and 2 feel so far away, and I'm not saying that's coming back, but he's competing with targets for who moving forward? And
not Shaheed,
next 2 matchups, the Browns and the Rams. Yep. The other thing about it is, if you wanted to draw up a good script for MVS to, I'm not going to say reproduce this type of stat line, but to stay fantasy relevant and as a high-end flex play, it's against the Browns and Rams, who are both bottom 6 as far as deep passing yards allowed. So again, if they suck versus deep passing, play MVS. Okay, well, the next 2 matchups qualify.
Pat, here's my only other problem with that is too. Yeah, he's got Cleveland. Yeah, he's got the Rams, but in between, he's got a bye. So you're looking at the stat line here in week 9 against Carolina, 1 catch on 1 target for 5 yards. And then yesterday, 3 catches on 3 targets for 109 and 2 touchdowns. It is very possible you get those 2 catches for 10 yards in this upcoming week. It happens, and then he's useless the next week to you on the bye. So is MVS a trap, or like DBro's maybe suggesting, maybe people just don't even want to deal with it, and you can get him for a couple bucks, stream him this week, and then churn and burn?
Yeah, this is very much, it depends on the texture of your league. I know you guys, like me, play in some leagues where it's 14 teams and 3 flex spots. And in a league like that, you can afford to take a chance on a guy, a high upside guy like MVS, who probably has not put up his last big stat line of the year, considering the depleted state of the Saints wide receiver core right now. But we also know that MVS is going to throw up some air balls. There are going to be some 1 catch for 5-yard games. So that level of volatility you can maybe take in a league where you have to start 10 or 11 players every week, and there are a lot of teams. But if you're in a 10-person or a 12-person league with shallow benches, I don't think you want to get into the MVS business.
All right, fair enough. There are some guys we got to talk about getting into the business of. Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell, 2 guys from the Indianapolis Colts. I know Pittman having his issues too, so that opened up some here in the passing game. Pat, Pierce is 16% rostered. AD Mitchell, same thing, in that same range, 16%, 15% rostered. So your thoughts on these two Colts wide receivers? I feel like every week we're having some kind of Colt wide receiver conversation on this show, and that just kind of speaks to the inconsistency of this offense. But where are you at with those two guys?
I may be a little bit more interested in Pierce. 7 targets on Joe Flacco's 35 throws yesterday. So, and they're obviously high value targets for Alec Pierce, who runs deep routes. The thing is with both Pierce and Mitchell, there are two future events that could greatly devalue both guys. One is the return of Michael Pittman Jr., which probably is inevitable pretty soon. The other is the reinsertion of Anthony Richardson at quarterback, which I also think is pretty inevitable because Joe Flacco is not taking them on any sort of playoff drive. We're seeing the problem with Joe Flacco. Like he throws way too many YOLO balls and gets intercepted and sacked a lot. And those are just drive killers. And we're going to see Richardson return at some point. And when Pittman is back and Richardson is at quarterback, Pierce and Adonai Mitchell are simply unplayable in fantasy.
Well, I guess that's the question too, is like, when do we see Richardson back? Because you have the Jets up next for Flacco and the Colts, Detroit, New England, and the bye. So do we see him before or after that bye, DBro?
I think it's after the bye. I think that the Colts are not done taking their medicine, and apparently they need really, really big spoonfuls of it. And, enjoy the locker room, enjoy the non-playoffs, enjoy the Joe Flacco show. That's all I can tell.
I mean, here's the thing. You go 2-3 in those 3 games, and then you have the bye. You're very much alive in the AFC playoffs.
But they're not, and they didn't.
Well, they haven't played.
They're not
yet.
going
The
to.
Jets, they're probably going to lose to the Lions.
They're not going to.
But you could beat the Jets, and I think we all know you could beat the Jets. And then the New England Patriots.
Joe Flacco says, "Hold my beer."
You can. I mean, I know my New England Patriots won again this week. Upset special. Ding, ding, ding. Let's go.
Trust me, Joe. They have upset some people here in Chicago. I can assure you.
Oh man, let me tell you, that was so easy to. Yeah, if you're missing it, make sure you're watching Betting Pros, because Erickson and I circled that game on the Look Ahead show on last Monday, and we were like, look, Patriots to cover 7 points. What are you, crazy? And it went to 6, as the week went on. And, at a certain point, I'm like, well, let's just take him to win outright at this point. And what do you know? They did it again. Give Drake May some weapons, folks, please, for the love of God. All right, 2 more guys to talk about. Ricky Pearsall, who, I got to say, this was the most surprising one to me. I thought Pearsall might be a guy that would fade away, DBro. He did not. 55% rostered. He was a part of this plan yesterday. That was a little surprising to me with McCaffrey back and with Debo on the field and Jennings on the field, like Pearsall being a thing. Is that something that you think is sustainable?
I think it's sustainable in the sense of, he got a 16% target share. He had the big play that he ripped off, got the 73 receiving yards. So I think his role in the offense is sustainable. But the thing I want to talk about here with Pearsall is the contingent upside, because we know the talent is there, the draft pedigree. He's had time to now assimilate to the offense. Now we have a game where we've actually seen him flash the talent that we all know that he has. And if Kittle, who's never been a picture of health, or Debo, or Chris McCaffrey misses any time, the Pearsall's position in this target pecking order is going to do nothing but go up. And the matchups are pretty good going forward. Seattle, yes, please. Green Bay has been up and down as a pass defense. And Buffalo, I understand, is tough. But again, you're going to have to put up points and throw the freaking ball. So Pearsall is a guy that I want on rosters. I think 3 to 5% will probably get him if you don't already have him rostered. And it's not only does he have that type of appeal. Again, what if anything happens to Juwan Jennings? He's been in and out of the lineup. Right. So either way, any way this goes, we know the floor of Pearsall, which we just saw kind of like this last week. But the upside could be immense, and that contingent value is something I want to bet on down the stretch.
Pat, do you think Pearsall has upside?
DBro makes a great point about the contingent upside and how his value could increase with an injury to anyone else here. The only thing is, as far as playing him in week 11, I worry that he's probably only going to play about 2/3 of the offensive snaps. That's kind of his ceiling, since the 49ers they play less 3 wide than most teams. And he's surrounded by other good pass catchers: Debo, Jennings, Kittle, McCaffrey. So I think I'm going to have Pearsall rank like in the 40s. I had him outside the top 50 this past week, and he made one big play and made that look bad. I'll probably have him in the 40s this week. Like I just can't rank him any higher based on his environment right now. But as DBro said, one injury could make his environment a lot more I don't know, make it look a lot
Palatable.
better and give him a lot of fantasy value.
DBro, who has more disdain for kickers, me or Deebo Samuel?
Holder. It was the holder he grabbed by the throat.
I was gonna say,
wasn't it?
Well, he grabbed the holder and then at the same
um,
time turned around and smacked booty too. Like he kind of did the double, which was.
Can I say it's equal? I feel like it's equal.
All right, I'll accept that. Mike Williams, 20% rostered. We talked about it last week on the show. We said, hey, he's out there floating around on the bye week, after the trade deadline. And DBro and I on the Tuesday show when the trade deadline happened, we said, hey, Mike Williams, they're probably going to throw up a ball and Mike Williams will go get it. And he did. Pat, it's not something, again, you want to chase. So who would you rather have rest of season, Mike Williams or Marquez Valdes-Scantling? Go.
I think Mike Williams. Mike Williams.
Okay. I think that's right.
Yeah, agreed.
The higher pedigree. He's given us a couple 1,000-yard seasons. He's given us a 10-touchdown season. I thought it was really weird that the Steelers went out and got a guy whose style is so similar to that of George Pickens. Like these are both these big vertical receivers.
But that's all Russell Wilson's doing. He's just throwing. Do you want to talk about guys throwing up balls? You want to talk about Joe Flacco throwing up balls?
Joe, that is it.
Go get it, man.
The Steelers' offense.
He's down there somewhere.
The Steelers' offensive formula: run the crap out of the ball and use play action to hit these shot plays downfield. Like it is a wild, old school 1970s offense, but it seems to be.
I just
working.
don't know why Fields can do the same thing. I just think he's afraid to do that because he's like, this doesn't feel like a good idea. But with Fields, not only could he do all that, I feel like, but he could also give you that element of running the football. But I don't know, man. Russell Wilson 3-0. What do I know? DBro, Mike Williams or MVS for you?
Oh, it's Big Mike. And I think you're going to have to pay, around the same amount. I mean, I think you can probably get Mike Williams for 2 to 3% of your fab, considering, we're all looking at the fact that he only played 9 snaps, ran 7 routes. And people are going to say, well, I'm not chasing that. But we talked about this on the live stream, Joey, and I'll bring it up again here. Like the upcoming schedule is fantastic for Mike Williams. Like he's probably not going to play a full-time role against Baltimore, but maybe that might not matter if he plays 50% of the snaps and gets like 2 deep targets. But the rest of the season schedule looks really good, man. Like Cleveland is not a pass defense that we should fear anymore. They play them twice. Same with the Bengals. Okay, the Eagles are extremely tough, but then they get the Ravens and they get the Chiefs again. So they're going to have to throw the ball and put up points. So yeah, like Pat hit the nail on the head. Design of this offense is run. Russell says, he's down there somewhere.
He's down there somewhere. There he goes. Throw it. Coming back from bye weeks, these guys might be floating around your waiver wire. Elijah Moore and Jerry Jeudy of the Cleveland Browns. Moore rostered in 16% of leagues. Jeudy much higher, about 62. But again, you have a lot of people making hard decisions last week at the last minute. So check your waiver wire. Also on a bye, Jalen Coker this week of the Carolina Panthers. Another guy you might be able to slip in that waiver wire when you're looking ahead to weeks 12 and 14. Maybe a guy to drop this week, Jalen Tolbert, a player that we had some hopes for, but with Dak Prescott's hamstring gone away and the Cowboy season along with it, DBro, is it time to cut bait with Jalen Tolbert?
Yep. Cooper Rush is not good, and people got a very
is Trey Lance any good?
Vivid reminder of that.
What about Trey Lance, DBro?
Nope.
No? Okay. Samesies for you, Pat? Jalen Tolbert?
Yes. Okay. And Joe, could I voice 2 quick concerns about Coker and the 2 Browns receivers?
Okay, maybe even 4 or 5 if you want.
DBro has been doing a great job of making this public service announcement in our waiver article every week. If you're thinking about getting Elijah Moore or Jerry Jeudy, just realize good matchup against the Saints this week. But from week 12 to week 15, the Browns play the Steelers, Broncos, Steelers again, and the Chiefs. So it is a pretty hellish run of matchups there. And the one thing about Coker, and maybe DBro worries about this less than I do, is I think Adam Thielen could be ready to go coming out of their week 11 bye. In which case, does that push Coker outside, or did they have Thielen play outside, or did they split it? Because Bryce Young does target his slot receivers a lot. And we saw that last year with Adam Thielen, who was wide receiver 6 or something going into Thanksgiving week in PPR leagues. But I don't want any of the outside receivers in this offense, really. So if Thielen comes back and pushes Coker outside, that really devalues Coker.
I think Coker keeps the slot role, and I think Thielen, if anything, we could see like a 50-50 for both, but I think Coker can play the outside. But dude, the big thing I want to highlight about Coker, and I know the stat, I know if people look at the box scores, they're going to say, why should I care about this guy? It's Bryce Young. dude, he got a freaking 32% target share. Like that plays. Like that type of volume. And the other thing about it, we could say, okay, there's nobody left and it's Bryce Young. That's out targeting their first round pick, Xavier Legette, by a large margin. And the upcoming matchups are fantastic for slot wide receivers. Like KC, very good versus the perimeter. The Bucs, very decent versus the perimeter. But yet they've allowed the second and third most fantasy points per game to opposing slot wide receivers.
Yeah. And the Carolina Panthers are streaking right now. 2 wins in a row, everybody. Look out. Let's go. All right, let's get to some of the streamers for week 11. DBro, kick us off with a QB you want to stream. You need to redeem yourself because last week you gave everybody Aaron Rodgers, and I told you that was a dumb idea, but you didn't listen to me.
I know.
So redeem yourself. Where are you going?
On that L. I knew I was going to get the smoke today, and
I was saving it.
Man.
We were saving it.
Look, I deserve it, and so do the Jets.
Oh, they deserve it.
Their season is done.
Football in New York, not so great these days.
It's
not so great.
It's bad. Devontae Adams dropping passes in the end zone. It's not good. Not good. But 2 quarterbacks that will lead you to fantasy points this week. We're gonna go back to the well, man. We've made jokes. We've talked about it, but Russell Wilson throw YOLO balls against a bottom 3 pass defense for the Baltimore Ravens. Yes, please.
I like this one much better. Don't worry. I think things are going to be okay this week. For you, Fitzy, you're targeting a guy against the Atlanta Falcons.
Bo Nix, he's just become such a reliable point producer. A tough matchup against the Chiefs, and he was like really efficient as a passer, didn't run much, but gave us 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. Oh, and by the way, he's playing the Atlanta Falcons, the team that just made Marquez Valdes-Scantling look like Randy Moss. So pretty good matchup.
Pat, was it weird to say Bo Nix, a very reliable fantasy point getter?
Oh, like goodness. Man, go back over the last 6 weeks. He's got to be like top 8 for QB fantasy.
Since week 5, QB 8, QB 9, QB 18. Okay, not so good. Then QB 2, QB 15, QB 12. So he's right on that 1A tier, man. Yeah. Like he's a guy you should be stashing right now.
Good Daniel Jones. That's all he is. Good Daniel Jones.
Good Daniel Jones. How about a tight end to stream this week, Patty? How you got?
Jonnu Smith against the Raiders, good matchup, and it seems like Tua Tagovailoa's strategy of getting the ball out quickly greatly benefits Jonnu Smith. And again, the Raiders are very generous to tight ends. It seems like he could be a good streamer for week 11.
DBro, tight end for week 11.
So this one comes with context, but I want people monitoring this because he is going to be ranked inside my top 12 tight ends for the week if Dalton Kincaid is out, and that is Dawson Knox. The matchup, I mean, we know that Buffalo's going to throw the ball. It's a Josh Allen-led offense. All of that is definitively true. The Kansas City Chiefs are a top shelf matchup for tight ends. They're allowing the second most fantasy points per game and the most receiving yards per game to the position, and as well as Keon Coleman, Amari Cooper, they even play. So the target tree has been pruned a few limbs. So Dawson Knox could walk away with a very good game.
All right, let's go to the defenses to stream for week 11. DBro, who do you have?
I want pressure. I want turnovers. And this is a low-key great option. I can't even believe they're still out there, man. The Rams versus the Patriots, only 22% rostered. They're top 3 in pressure rate and QB hurry rate. And guess what? Drake May's a rookie, and he has faced the highest pressure rate in the NFL this year. So, yes, the Rams are a fantastic option.
Pat, speaking of turnovers, the Houston Texans create a lot of turnovers, just couldn't win the football game on it. So they're available this week. You want to stream them?
Yes, they created 5 turnovers with the interceptions. Ooh. Joe, they're number 2 in defensive DVOA going into week 10. They were number 5 in pressure rate, number 6 in sacks. And get this for their upcoming schedule for the Texans. The Dallas Cowboys. Yes, please. The Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, their next 3 quarterbacks, it looks like they could be facing Trey Lance, Will Levis, and Mac Jones. So I'm going the extra buck or two.
Pat wins. I'll say it. Pat has the better streamer. I'm with that.
I'll spend $3 on the Texans and not have to worry about a defense until Thanksgiving.
Well, you've been doing that for a couple of weeks, Pat. Like you gave us the Lions on that schedule, I think, a couple weeks ago. The Broncos on one of them earlier. Like,
I'm a lazy man, Joe. I don't want to have to stream a defense every single week. I just want to set it and forget it for like 3 weeks and not have to do anything.
There you go. All right, schedule of bad quarterbacks.
Let's go for kicker here, Pat. Who do you have?
Jason Sanders versus the Raiders. Again, good matchup. And in the 2 games since Tua came back, Sanders has had 2 field goals and 3 extra points in both of those games.
DBro, kicker?
Call me a sucker for a feel-good story, baby. Jake Bates. Give me him. Detroit's going to be in the red zone, and they're going to be in kicking range often against Jacksonville.
Yeah, but then Dan Campbell is going to go for it on 4th and 7.
It's true.
Well, now he's got now we know that Batesy he's got that 50-yard plus leg. Like they talked about this in the broadcast. He's like didn't want to sit here and put too many long shots onto the kid's shoulders. He hit 2 of them last week. I know. Barely still counts. A 58-yarder barely.
Good on the Lions. Like the teams, people want to give the Lions crap because Goff threw all those picks. They won the game. People want to give the Chiefs crap. They blocked the kick. They won the game. These teams that play all 3 phases, offense, defense, special teams, you give yourself a much better chance to win football games. And you can hate it all you want. You can say it's luck, whatever it is. When you are good in all 3 aspects, you are giving yourself a much better chance to have the record that the teams like the Lions and the Chiefs have. So you can hate them all you want. That's good football. Sorry. You go, referees, shut up. Stop it. This is just good football. This is preparation. This is work ethic. This is personnel. This is top to bottom good organization.
I think that's called grit, Joe.
It's all of it. It's all of the above, and those 2 teams have it, which is why I already bet them both in the Super Bowl before to go at it, and I doubled down on it in it's halfway evaluation in week 9. When I was like, this is it. I still don't see 2 teams from either conference that are going to match these guys, and I think both of them are going to have the 1 seed. And when they have the 1 seed, it's a much easier path. 2 home games after a bye to the Super Bowl. More often than not, that is a tough thing to stop. All right, let's get to the waiver wire ads of the week. Fitzy, who's the top 5 for week 11?
Jaylen Warren, number 1. Audric Estime, number 2. Number 3, Quentin Johnston, still widely available. Big, fast, tied to a good quarterback, has shown an aptitude for scoring a lot of touchdowns. I like all those things, Joe. Number 4, a guy we didn't really talk about, Tyjae Spears, who came back in week 10, got a pretty good amount of work. Tony Pollard not fully healthy, and I loved what I saw from Tyjae Spears in 2023. So I'm interested in adding him. And Ricky Pearsall, as DBro mentioned, a lot of contingent upside there. He's number 5.
Yeah, I know Spears was in the 60% in sleeper. QJ is at 59. So check him out, folks. I mean, that was a guy who was our waiver wire pick of the week last week, and guess what? He had another touchdown this week. So DBro, give me your top 5 for week 11.
I'm going to pound the table for Audric Estime, number 1, Jaylen Warren, number 2, Ricky Pearsall with that contingent upside, number 3, and then we're going to the slot wide receivers that score points, Jalen Coker, number 4, and Elijah Moore, 5.
There you have it, everybody. For more waiver wire help, make sure you use the waiver assistant on My Playbook. Go to fantasypros.com/myplaybook or just download the app and head over to fantasypros.com. Check out the waiver wire article and all of the information we have, including the waiver ranks and more at Fantasy Pros. Don't miss a second of it. So that'll do it for us. But the story of the game, it goes on. For Pat Fitzmaurice and Derek Brown, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.